Hey everyone, this is Russell with Common Motor, and today we'll be showing you how to rebuild your external spring forks on your vintage Honda. This style of fork is generally found on early Honda CB350s, CL350s, CB450s, and CL450s. If you aren't sure what fork architecture you have, check out our video in the top right corner before getting started to better understand the differences between fork architectures that Honda used. To get started, remove your front wheel and fender. Next, unscrew the top fork bolts that go through the triple tree. Loosen the lower triple tree bolts and your fork should be ready to pull out. Oftentimes rust will build up in the headlight ears, so it might take some effort to pull them out of the triple tree. A wooden dowel and a hammer can help get them moving. When taking this much of your motorcycle apart, it's a great time to clean and rebuild other parts that are difficult to get to usually. We recommend removing and cleaning the headlight ears, dust covers, headlight bucket, and even the upper and lower triple tree. This is a great opportunity to convert from the factory ball bearings in your triple tree to a set of tapered roller bearings and fresh grease. You can check out our video on how to do that in the upper right hand corner. Once you have your forks removed, it's time to disassemble them. Start by removing the top bolt from the fork. Then remove the spring seat and the spring from the outside of your fork. Tip it over to drain the old oil out. You can compress it a few times to get any remaining oil out of there. Use a pair of snap ring pliers to remove the snap ring that holds the seal in place. Then, use the entire fork like a slide hammer to pull the seal out and pull the fork tube from the lower fork. Now, we're not going to disassemble the lower guide and piston on these fork tubes, but if yours are seized or dirty, you should. In some designs, like this fork tube, Honda used a single piston and guide. In others, they also used a third dampener on the fork tube, like in the early CB and CL450 forks. They should all float on the fork tube and be able to spin freely. They can be removed by taking off the lower snap ring and sliding off the piston, dampener, and spring clips in the order that they're on the fork tube. Keep these in exactly the same order they came off the tube, and take note of what is the top and bottom of each piece. They all have an orientation and have tiny recessed grooves that face a specific direction like this one. Before cleaning everything, it's a good idea to snap a photo of everything so you don't lose track of their order. One last thing to point out is this bottom screw that holds the remaining components in your lower fork housing. Unless the insides of your forks are incredibly dirty or the screw is damaged, you really don't need to remove this with the external spring forks. Before starting to clean up your fork tubes, it's important to take a moment to thoroughly inspect them. For your new seal to function properly, your forks need to be free of pitting and heavy wear on the chrome outer fork surface that moves in and out of the fork seal. Again, this only applies to the surface of the fork tube that travels in and out of the seal. Pitting and wear will tear up the new fork seal as well as let oil escape, so if yours is bad, look out for a set of good used condition fork tubes. If your tubes are in great shape where they travel in and out of the seal, but the upper half is rusty, your tubes are completely functional and able to be reused. We usually remove the rust found on the upper half of most Honda fork tubes of this era and protect the upper half of the tube against future rust with a little clear coat. When you have the forks disassembled, take your time getting every component squeaky clean before you're ready to reassemble. Start the reassembly by applying some fork oil to the bottom of the fork tube and sliding it back into the lower fork tube. Now you're ready to install your new seal into the lower fork tube. We offer two different styles of fork seals here at Common Motor, the Easy Install brand seals and the standard seals. The Easy Install brand seals are great because they can simply be pushed into place. Be sure that the open side of the seal faces down, and you place the included aluminum washer on top. These seals are supposed to float in the fork body and will expand when the fork is compressed and under load. With the seal pressed in just underneath the groove, reinstall the snap ring. Our standard seals need to be driven into place just like the Honda OEM seals. To drive the seal into the lower fork body, you'll either need a single tube or pipe that fits over the entire fork tube, or a series of tubes that you can stack up so that you can hammer the seal into place above the chrome fork tube. Be sure that the size of the tube you're using is slightly smaller than the outer diameter of the seal. If it's too small, you can damage the inner seal surface, and too large and you'll hit the outer fork housing. You'll know you're done when the snap ring groove is right above the seal on all sides. Be careful not to drive the seal further than right below the surface of the snap ring. Once your seal is in, place the snap ring back into the groove just above your new seal. Honda calls for automatic transmission fluid inside the forks, but motorcycle-specific fork oils have come a long way since the 60s and 70s, and it's always preferable to use a dedicated fork oil in your forks. We sell a few weights of fork oil based on rider weight and how stiff you want your front suspension to be. Automatic transmission fluid is about 5 weight, but we find that 10 weight fork oil works best for riders under 200 pounds, and 15 weight fork oil works best for riders over 200 pounds. Check your service manual to see how much fork oil should be added for your specific bike, and then screw the top cap back in. After adding the fork oil, replace any collars or trim pieces that you removed from the fork, and reinstall your external spring. We offer replacement fork springs made by Icon. They're powder coated and will improve the ride of your bike over worn stock springs. Add the spring seat on top of your new spring, and you're ready to reinstall the forks on your motorcycle. Put your headlight, fork covers, and headlight ears back into place if you remove them. Remove the top bolts from each fork before sliding that fork back through the triple trees, and secure it in place by screwing the top bolt into the fork through the triple tree. Once each fork is in, torque the lower triple tree bolts according to the spec in the description below. Reinstall your front fender, front wheel, speedometer, and front brake cables, and readjust your front brakes. Don't forget to torque the axle holding nuts according to the spec in the description below as well. The last thing to do is go enjoy your freshly rebuilt suspension. This has been Russell with Common Motor. Don't forget to like on Facebook and Instagram, subscribe to our newsletter at common-motor.com, and subscribe to this YouTube channel right down below. I'll see you next time.